us tonight as we travel along. No turning back. Tell my mom.
Second, you got your call?
A woman was screaming bloody murder back there.
Police.
We're here to help you.
Okay, all right. Are you hurt? Gloves on, Danny.
Where's that blood coming from?
Hey, back it up, please.
It's locked.
There is no fire.
We have an officer down. Okay? Put your hands in the air!
The night was dense, laden with an oppressive silence that seemed to foreshadow the worst. Angela Vidal, a television reporter with a racing pulse, and her cameraman, Scott Percival, with the camera trembling in his hands, were assigned to cover the night shift of firefighters Jake and Fletcher. What seemed like a routine task turned into a nightmare when they responded to an emergency call at an old apartment building, whose walls seemed to exude a stench of dampness and despair. The building manager, Yuri, a man with a gaunt face and restless eyes, greeted them with a chilling story, harrowing screams coming from the apartment of Mrs. Espinosa, an elderly woman who lived alone and was now locked in, cut off from communication. The firefighters, accompanied by officers Danny and James, Angela, and Scott, ascended the creaky stairs to the third floor. With each step, the air grew heavier, saturated with a metallic scent they couldn't identify. When they burst into the apartment, the scene hit them like a hammer. Mrs. Espinosa, a frail figure in a tattered nightgown, huddled in a corner, her bloodshot eyes and foaming mouth making her look possessed by a demon. Her skin, pale and almost translucent, revealed black veins pulsing beneath the surface. Before they could react, she lunged with an inhuman screech, her nails slashing the air, sinking her teeth into James's neck. Blood gushed out like a fountain, splattering the walls and Angela's face, who barely contained a scream. They dragged James into the hallway, his body convulsing as his life slipped away. Fletcher, his face contorted in fear, remained upstairs to watch over the now sedated elderly woman, or so they thought. But when they tried to leave, they discovered the building's doors had been sealed from the outside, as if an invisible force had condemned them to remain inside. Panic began to slither among the trapped residents, unfamiliar faces, distrustful glances, whispers resonating through the dark hallways. A gut-wrenching scream shattered the chaos. Upstairs, Fletcher was attacked by Mrs. Espinosa, who, with supernatural strength, hurled him from the railing. His body hit the lobby floor with a sickening crunch, his limbs twisted at impossible angles. The residents, huddled in the shadows, screamed and clung to each other as the echo of the impact reverberated through the building. Lawrence, a weary-eyed veterinarian, desperately tried to stabilize the wounded, but his hands trembled at the symptoms, dilated pupils, foaming mouths, and a fury that seemed to consume them from within. Angela and Scott, hearts pounding in their throats, returned to Espinosa's apartment. There, the cleaning woman lay in a pool of blood, her face frozen in a grimace of terror. The elderly woman now stood, her eyes bleeding black tears. Her dress, soaked in blood, hung like a shroud. Before they could retreat, she lunged with a guttural roar. Danny, his gun shaking in his hands, fired. Espinosa's body fell, but the silence that followed was even more terrifying. The building had become a labyrinth of horror. As Jake, Scott, and Angela roamed the apartments, they found Randy, a young man with a vacant stare, and Jawahir and Native, an African couple barely understanding the unfolding nightmare. Elise, another resident, coughed violently, blood dripping from her lips, her gaze promising violence. Panic erupted as the CDC declared quarantine, and the building's loudspeakers emitted a chilling hum before going silent. Angela, her voice cracking, interviewed the residents. Brianna, a pale girl with deep-set eyes, spoke of her dog Max, who had been taken to the vet after turning aggressive. Lawrence, his face slick with sweat, explained that the infected exhibited rabies-like symptoms, but at an impossible speed, as if the virus devoured their bodies within hours. Every word was another nail in Hope's coffin. In an attempt to find answers, Angela and Scott followed Bernard and Sadie to their apartment. In the elevator, a growl froze them. Randy, now unrecognizable, was torn apart by an infected dog, his screams swallowed by the sound of flesh being ripped. On the television, a false report assured that the building had been evacuated, but the power cut before they could process it. In the gloom, Elise appeared, her face distorted by black veins and glassy eyes. She attacked with animalistic ferocity, and Scott, in a desperate act, slammed his camera against her skull until it cracked, splattering blood in all directions. The nightmare wouldn't end. Danny discovered more bodies, the cleaning woman, Randy, all dead. Johnathon native cared for a paralyzed father, his breathing a wheezing agony. The mysterious attic tenant remained missing, his absence an ominous warning. 2 CDC agents, wrapped in containment suits, arrived like specters. They attempted to take a brain sample from Fletcher, but he, with a blood-curdling screech, bit one of them, tearing a chunk of flesh through the suit. The surviving agent, voice trembling, revealed the truth. A dog from the building had been taken to the vet the previous day, gone berserk, and infected other animals. That dog, Max, belonged to Brianna. The virus, unknown and lethal, transformed its victims into bloodthirsty monsters. As the agent spoke, the infected began to rise, their bodies twisted and their eyes vacant. Lawrence, caught in the chaos, was bitten, his scream lost in the chorus of roars filling the building. The air reeked of death and decay. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound was a threat. Angela, tears streaming down her face, clutched Scott's camera, knowing that if they survived, no one would believe what they had seen. But deep down, a darker certainty consumed her. Perhaps there was no way out of this hell. The air in the building was now a thick poison, heavy with blood and fear. Angela, her face stained with tears and sweat, shuddered as she confirmed that Max, Brianna's dog, was the origin of the plague. The girl, her skin ashen and eyes sunken, no longer seemed human. The survivors, cornered in a section of the lobby, exchanged distrustful glances. Brianna's supposed bronchitis was a lie, unraveling like rotten flesh. Suddenly, with a scream that tore through the silence, Brianna lunged at her mother, Kathy, sinking her teeth into her throat. Blood splattered the floor as the girl, with demonic agility, escaped upstairs, vanishing into the shadows. Kathy, convulsing and sobbing, was handcuffed to the staircase railing, her plea to protect her daughter drowned out by everyone's terror. Angela, Scott, Jake, and Danny, hearts pounding in their ears, tracked Brianna to Mrs. Espinosa's apartment. The place reeked of death, with dry bloodstains covering the walls like a macabre painting. Brianna crouched in a corner, growling like an animal. When Danny attempted to sedate her, the girl bit him so viciously that a gush of blood burst from his arm. At that moment, an inhuman roar filled the room. Mrs. Espinosa, who had survived the earlier gunshot, rose from the floor, her body twisted and her eyes bleeding. Jake, his face contorted with horror, raised a sledgehammer and brought it down on her skull, which cracked with a nauseating crunch. They fled downstairs, but the horror awaited them. The infected, their bodies mangled and faces disfigured, had torn through the metal shutter. Their growls echoed like an infernal chorus. Jake tried to reinforce the barricade while Angela, hands trembling, searched for the key to Kathy's handcuffs. Each second felt like an eternity, and Kathy's screams, now infected, mingled with the sound of tearing flesh. Unable to find the key, Jake pulled Angela away, leaving Kathy at the mercy of the creatures that devoured her alive, her final screams echoing through the staircase. The stampede toward the upper floors was chaos, bodies crashing, labored breaths. Jawahir and Native, desperate, were separated from the group and caught by the infected. Their screams faded into a wet gurgle. Angela, Jake, Scott, Sadie, Bernard, Yuri, his wife Wanda, and the CDC agent barricaded themselves in an empty apartment. The agent, his face pale, locked himself in a room upon discovering a festering bite on his arm. But the real horror emerged when Sadie, coughing blood and tearing her fingers off with her teeth, revealed her infection. Her eyes, void of humanity, gleamed with savage fury. Bernard, tears streaming down his face, begged them not to kill her. In a desperate act, he tried breaking the window to call for help. A gunshot rang out from the building across the street, and his head exploded, splattering the walls. The sniper, unseen in the night, had sealed his fate. Yuri, his voice breaking, mentioned an exit in the basement, a drain leading to the sewers, but the keys were in his apartment. Before they could plan, the CDC agent and Sadie, now monsters, attacked. Yuri and Wanda fell under their teeth, blood pooling on the floor. The dwindling group fought desperately to reach Yuri's apartment. In the elevator, Max's infected dog ambushed them, its jaws snapping in the darkness. Jake, still gripping the sledgehammer, crushed it against the floor, the animal's skull shattering into pieces. In Yuri's apartment, they found the keyring, but their victory was fleeting. Yuri, now infected, bit Jake, who collapsed screaming as black veins spread across his skin. Angela and Scott, the last survivors, were forced into the attic apartment by Danny and a horde of infected closing in. The attic was a mausoleum of nightmares, walls covered in strange symbols, newspaper clippings on apocalyptic cults, and shattered vials reeking of chemicals. They discovered that the tenant, a fanatic, had stolen a mutated rabies virus from a military lab. Each revelation was another nail in their coffin of hope. A door creaked in the attic, and Scott, pulse racing, switched on the camera light. An infected child, his skin hanging in shreds, leapt from the shadows, shattering the light with a single blow. Scott activated night vision, the eerie green revealing a hellscape of twisted silhouettes. Thudding sounds grew closer. In the kitchen, a skeletal figure, its face sunken and eyes blind, rummaged through debris, oblivious to them. Scott tried to retreat but stumbled. The creature pounced, tearing into his flesh with jagged nails. The camera fell, capturing his agony as blood soaked the floor. Angela, paralyzed, picked up the camera. The man, now devouring Scott, lifted his head. She screamed, a sound that ripped through her soul, and the creature attacked. The blow struck the camera, sparing her for an instant. She crawled through the darkness, her breath ragged, the cold floor beneath her hands. 10 seconds of silence, of pure desperation. Then, skeletal hands grabbed her legs, dragging her into the black void. Her final scream, a cry of raw terror, echoed as the camera kept recording, a mute witness to a nightmare no one would believe.